Why did she do it? So that's the question that I think everyone is asking, and no one really has a solid answer. But today I'm going to try to give my perspective on why I think CreepShow Art, aka Shannon, engaged in the behaviours that she engaged in. It's going to be from a psychological perspective. My background is in psychology, so I kind of come at it from that angle. And I found it interesting when this started to unfold, and I thought I'd wait a couple of weeks to see if any more things happened to kind of further cement what my perspective is. So I just want to kind of put out a disclaimer before I start talking about it or say anything, that what I speak about today, in no way am I trying to diagnose anyone or suggest someone should have a specific diagnosis whatsoever. I want to draw some similarities between CreepShow Art, aka Shannon's behaviour, compared to those of people who are extremely manipulative and use manipulative tactics and strategies in their everyday interpersonal relations. So people that tend to be very manipulative would fall higher on the narcissistic spectrum than other people. So people that are more empathetic would be lower on the narcissistic spectrum. Everyone has a certain amount of narcissism. It's healthy to have a certain amount, but if it goes too high, it becomes troublesome, and then it can go super high and get to a point where it becomes narcissistic personality disorder. And again, I'm not diagnosing anyone whatsoever. Lots of people just fall high in the spectrum but don't actually have a personality disorder. The other purpose of this video is for people watching that possibly has a manipulative or emotionally abusive person in their life, and maybe just to be a little bit more aware of some of the red flags or manipulation strategies and tactics that some of these personality types use. And, you know, not all of these personality types use them consciously. Some are done subconsciously. So even they are unaware, and to a certain extent, as to the fact that they're engaging in manipulative behaviors. So for people who don't know, basically, I'm just going to summarize it really quick in about a paragraph. There is tons of videos done on this, and they're quite repetitive, which is why I hope this one will be a little bit different. But you can watch loads of those to get the full story. I'll link some videos in the description below. CreepShow Art is a YouTube content creator. Her real name is Shannon, and she was basically accused, because technically it is still an accusation, it's not been solidly proven, but the evidence weighs kind of heavily for the fact that she has done this. She's been accused of stalking and harassing a fellow YouTube content creator quite badly for a number of years. The YouTube content creator was called Emily Artful, so that's the name of her channel. Her name is Emily. This YouTube content creator also happens to be her current husband's ex-partner, so that gets a little bit messy there. That's basically how their worlds collided to begin with. And the other part of the story, basically why this whole thing came out and why there's accusations in the first place, is because Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, was posting on LolCow, a kind of popular website where people post their opinions and they have discussions and stuff like that about lots of different things online. And one of the things would be YouTube creators, content creators. So Shannon would go on there, and she would go on anonymously, and she would post really nasty things about other people that she claims to be friends with in real life. A lot of them were other content creators. And she would also anonymously post negative things about herself, as in CreepShow Art. And she would also anonymously post positive things about herself, that is CreepShow Art. But of course, no one was aware that this was her doing this. And the reason that it came to fruition that it was the admins of LolCow had tracked her IP address and the cookies to all of the posts that she had made, and they all came from basically the same device. I'm not sure how they know that that device was hers, but they apparently have some reliable, I guess, evidence to to accuse her of this in the first place. In the past, they've done this with other people. So they have kind of called people out for pretending to be, you know, anonymous members online to either white knight themselves or insult themselves. They've called those people out and they've been right every single time. So they're quite a credible source, which is why a lot of people are thinking it's got to be real. You know, why would they make that up? So that's it in a nutshell. Again, watch those videos for a much better kind of in-depth analysis. Now to the nitty-gritty. So from watching all of the videos that I have seen, the first thing I thought of was, obviously, this person seems to be quite manipulative. For people with manipulative personalities, or people that fall high in the narcissistic spectrum, they need supply. So by supply, I mean a primary source and a secondary source. So for a primary supply, that can be basically attention of any kind, positive or negative. It doesn't matter which one. Which is why it kind of struck me as interesting that the lol cow posts for herself, although anonymous, were both positive and negative. And I think people were kind of confused by that. But to someone with a personality type like that, it doesn't matter whether they're positive or negative. It was a form of attention that it was getting responses, reactions from people. Positive or negative doesn't matter. It was still a form of attention, therefore it was supply. And of course, the posts in this situation that Shannon was making, or for someone with a personality type that is manipulative, it doesn't matter if it's true or not. It doesn't matter at all, because the truth is however that person perceives the truth to be. So whether or not it is the truth doesn't matter, because they perceive that it's the truth, and that's all that matters. She was projecting a false self when she was doing this. So what I mean by a false self is basically it's a facade. It's how the manipulative person wants other people to see them. An example of this false self may be in videos. I always thought it was strange because I used to actually subscribe to her channel. I used to listen to some of her videos, and I always thought it was odd that in more or less a lot of videos, she really kind of severely promoted other YouTubers, and the majority of the time, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of the time they were YouTubers who were a lot more successful than her, and that they were great, they were amazing, they were this, that, and the other, they need more subscribers, blah, 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 go follow them, you know, all this sort of thing. In that instance, you could use the example of that the false self she was kind of purporting to the world was this person that's really kind and always looking out for others and wants the best for everyone. But then behind the scenes, she's also slandering these same people on lolcow. Also, another example of this false self may be when Shannon, aka CreepShow, continuously self-deprecates throughout videos all the time. I noticed that when I listened. I thought it was kind of odd all the time. Like, oh, I'm a terrible human. I'm awful. I'm this, that. I'm a horrible person. I've no self-esteem. And yeah, it was a bit strange. It was so constant that it was strange, I thought. But again, this could be the false self that she wants to perpetuate. So people think, oh, you know, Shannon CreepShow Art, she is kind of vulnerable, innocent girl. She's you know, she's good morals and she kind of stands by what she believes in, and God love her. She doesn't think highly of herself at all, which is a shame because she's so great. She just has the best moral compass ever. The secondary source of supply is basically the image that their lives are great and they're living the best possible life that they could be living. For example, that they have really good financial security, they've got lots of money, they've made lots of growth internally, development, personal development, that they, you know, have a partner that is really successful, or that they have friends in high places, friends that other people might be jealous of or want to be friends with. Or it could be being a kind of valued member of the community that you're in. or it might be, it's basically anything that is like a status symbol for the community that you're in or the community that you're part of. So another example from this situation is the same one from before, the kind of bigging up other YouTubers in your videos and, you know, kind of declaring often that, oh, look, they're my friend and he's my friend, she's my friend, and oh, they're such a great person, this, that, and the other, to create this sense that she is like part of, you know, these really successful YouTubers. She's one of them. She's a part of this. So that would be considered a secondary source of supply. So there are some other kind of manipulation tactics and strategies that manipulative people, or people that score high kind of on the narcissistic spectrum, that they have. And one of them would be to use gaslighting. So gaslighting basically means that a person starts to doubt their own reality of a situation, or of life in general. It can be extremely dangerous, very intense in really toxic relationships, where people actually feel like they're going insane, and the abusive partner has actually convinced them that they're also going insane, even though they're not at all. That's how powerful it can be. So an example of this from our current situation, there's actually quite a lot of them, but this video will be massive if I put them all in. But the main one would be from Emily Artful when she confronted Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, initially, and asked her, you know, is it you? Is it your husband? What's going on? And Shannon, knowing that allegedly that it was her husband and was her, was able to gaslight Emily Artful into thinking that, oh, maybe it wasn't her. Like, she's been so nice to me now. You know, God, maybe I'm wrong. And then Emily Artful kind of ended up flipping her conversation with CreepShow Art, because she kind of thought, she actually started to show CreepShow Art empathy, even though she was really sure that her and her husband were the ones that were stalking her, harassing her.
Shannon said, "Do what you need to do, but it isn't me. It isn't Andrew. That's all I can vouch for. If anything, he's more confused as to why you think it's him when he had you in a video while you were being harassed, and he got shit from it, you know?" Shannon says, "And I feel ya. I really do. I get where you're coming from on this, but no one here has the time to mess with you." I said, "Yeah, I promise you there are things that don't make sense to me either. There are several things that make me think it's not Andrew, but there are just a lot of uncanny coincidences, and it may just be that, coincidences. But this is the route I've decided to take, and the truth is, even though I'm mostly convinced, I still respect his intelligence, his art, your intelligence, your art, your lives. I don't want to get in anyone's way. I just want to make stupid art videos for my internet friends. I want to live in peace. I can take the hate, but I can't take the fear of losing my job and not being able to support my kids, or losing my kids." Shannon said, "Honestly, there's no way for me to prove it's not me, but it'll sort itself out. No, I completely understand that point. You have a family. As someone who's sensitive issues, that's a huge deal for me. I would never try to hurt someone like that. But there is no way you can actually know that for sure, because you don't know me." And then, because of what she mentioned, I start to soften a little bit, to have some sympathy for her. And I say, "Yeah, I know, Shannon. I know you don't, and I'm sorry. I really am sorry. If I'm wrong, I'm so, so sorry. But I just have to do this. When I first suspected Andrew, I actually worried about you. Part of me wanted to reach out to make sure you were okay, but I wasn't sure what was real or what wasn't." Shannon said, "All I know is that he has too much respect for you to do that. I don't know you well enough to spend that much time on it. And you need to do what's right for you." And then when I brought up Brandon, it was like she saw an out and pounced on it. Shannon said, "I think it's Brandon. Last year, Brandon tried to get me fired because Andrew essentially chose me over him."
One more example would be from a video that Repzilla put out, and he said that they had a WhatsApp group with all of, you know, YouTuber friends and stuff in it. And he said that Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, had said that she didn't know how to talk to people anymore that didn't believe her. And then I think she'd left the group or whatnot. But that again in itself, the evidence against her is overwhelming, although allegations still overwhelming, that she is gaslighting him into thinking oh God, okay, well, he didn't believe it, but that's what she was trying to do, you know, thinking, oh, well, um, God, maybe, who knows, maybe she didn't do it. And if he was susceptible to the manipulation, maybe he would have believed that. But I think the evidence is it's way too strong to kind of try to deny at this point, although she still is.
In the midst of trying to figure everything out, I'm trying to talk to her, because it's hard for me to like break that connection, because once you're, it's difficult for me to open up to people. I have high walls, and once I accept you as a friend, it's like I go hard for my friends, you know. So I'm saying, hey, just talk to me, explain to me, like, why did you leave the group chat? And she said this.
Also, I left the group chat because I don't know how to talk to people who think I did this.
The problem I have with that, and the reason that I'm showing you these two specific clips, is because they pertain to this information that I'm showing you. Nobody in that group chat at that time thought, and if you watch this, Shannon, we didn't think you did that. We didn't think you were capable of it. Like, we were there to listen to you. We were there to hear your side. We were there, and we wanted to see the evidence. We didn't want to believe that these terrible things... We didn't want to believe that these terrible things could be done by you. And you ghosted us. Like, you just...
So gaslighting then can eventually lead to something called cognitive dissonance. And there was also some examples of this that I heard, or that I seen, I guess, through watching some of the videos. And one example that I thought was interesting was when CreepShow Art, aka Shannon, had sent another famous YouTuber called Ready to Glare. Apparently these guys have been friends for a couple of years, and Ready to Glare was one of the people that Shannon was completely like dissing on LolCow, even though they were meant to be quite good friends in real life. I think they'd actually met up once or twice. So Ready to Glare said that basically before this whole story kind of blew up, before the admins of LolCow had explained basically that it was Shannon, and you know, we have these cookies to prove it, she had sent Ready to Glare this big bouquet of roses. And Ready to Glare actually says it confused her. She didn't know what the hell to think. And that is the exact purpose of cognitive dissonance. It creates confusion in the person because it involves having two opposing beliefs at one time. So, you know, on one hand she's thinking, oh, she's my friend, she's just sent me these roses, like, this is really nice, versus, oh my God, she's been completely dissing me online. What the hell? I was meant to be friends with her for years. How could she do this? She seems like a horrible, horrible person. So they're really conflicting, and it's confusing, you know? How could you not be confused about that?
It was difficult to internalize or accept the possible new reality of, oh yeah, this person actually, they weren't who you thought they were. And worst of all, they wanted to kind of convince you into thinking your relationship was something it wasn't. And the most confusing and almost laughable part of this is that a couple days before all of this information came out, Shannon had sent me roses to my own house. You know, so like, I think that was also part of it. It sounds stupid, but it's like, how do you reconcile, oh yeah, someone sent me roses, but they also don't think much of me and are shit talking me on a website. It is so contradictory that you almost feel a little bit crazy, because you're like, okay, what happened in between? Like, you know, so I think that also made me feel worse, because I was like, what do these flowers represent? What does this mean?
And then there is also love bombing. And the silent treatment. There's actually an example that kind of involves both of these, so I'm going to do them in one example. Love bombing is basically at the start of a relationship with a manipulative person. or someone that falls high in the narcissistic spectrum. And it basically involves them giving you loads of love bombs, literally. So love bombing and the silent treatment, I guess, kind of go hand in hand. So you have this brilliant phase, and it could be a friendship, could be work colleagues, could be parents, whoever the manipulative person is. You know, this is great period, woohoo, everything's great. And then boom, all of a sudden something happens that the manipulative person has perceived to be true, and you're at fault for it. What happens next is called the silent treatment. So the silent treatment basically is not speaking to someone, or if they live in the same house, very minimal interaction, if any, for a period of time. The silent treatment is very abusive, and the idea behind it, or why the manipulative person does it in the first place, is to gain control. And the control is gained by the person who's being abused kind of thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Like, what? I must have done something wrong if, you know, they're not talking to me. What the hell? And that in effect will change your behavior going forward. So then you're kind of starting to walk on eggshells, because you're thinking, oh, I don't want that to happen again. I don't want the person that I love or care about to not speak to me, or I don't want to upset them for quite a while. And this kind of goes around and around in circles, and it creates something called trauma bonding. And trauma bonding has the same chemical effect on the brain as taking Class A drugs. So you essentially become addicted to these highs and lows of the relationships. It's super unhealthy, really toxic, and it can actually be really difficult to move away from it, because it's like intermittent reinforcement in all types of relationships. I think often people kind of relate narcissistic abuse just to kind of romantic relationships. That's not the case at all. It happens with friendships, if you want to call them that, with family members, work colleagues, anyone, anywhere can be a manipulative person. So the example that I thought was interesting for this, and again, there is others, but I just kind of picked out this one. It was by a YouTube creator, and she had kind of previously been friends with Shannon or CreepShow Art. And she said that she would often hear from her for, you know, like a kind of short burst every now and again. And Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, would be love bombing her, giving her lots of compliments. And then she would just be silent for weeks on end. And, you know, this YouTube creator was thinking, oh my God, like, have I done something wrong? And she was kind of unsure. So she kind of recognized that was unusual, that she was kind of left thinking, oh, have I done something wrong? Or I wonder why she's not talking to me. It's strange.
There were points throughout talking with Shannon as a friend where I was afraid that I was annoying her. She'd go weeks, sometimes a month or two, without saying anything at all to me. At times I was afraid I said or did something to upset her, and I even considered to just distance myself from her because I thought I was bothering her.
Sorry I annoyed you with my friendship.
But then weeks later, we'd talk again and she'd tell me how awesome I am, and she'd say stuff like, I love you, you're amazing. Things I now understand were love bombing. And when she'd say these things, I felt guilty for even questioning if she was mad at me to begin with, and I just assumed that she was busy. After all of this has transpired, however, I've discussed this with our mutual friends, and they've shared similar experiences. But I'm not going to share those in this video. That's for them to discuss if they feel they want to.
One thing that's very important to manipulative people or people on the narcissistic spectrum is control. So control is key. Supply and control are like life, basically. And to gain control over certain people, you might see some strange behaviors that someone not high in the narcissistic spectrum or not manipulative would never engage in. So, for example, when I heard that Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, had doxed her sister when her sister was in ICU, I thought that was horrible, obviously, but I thought that was interesting. I wonder if they had had an interaction before that that was negative, or if their relationship had been negative, and her way to kind of gain back control over her sister was to do something like that. It's just like perceived control from the manipulative person's perspective. So as long as they perceive that they have controlled the person, and it might mean in this situation that now her sister has, is going to have a really hard time. She's going to have probably random freaks like coming up to her house, and people know where she lives. It's going to make her feel really unsafe, and all this whilst being in ICU. And then knowing the manipulator, knowing that they've created that situation, would thus be the control. And interestingly, Shannon, aka CreepShow Art, once uploaded a video, and it was titled "Finding Out I Am a Narcissist." And the video basically talks about how another girl was accusing Shannon, aka CreepShow, of being a narcissist. I thought that was interesting, because it's not often in everyday life where you're accused of being a narcissist. So yeah, I thought that was strange. And I guess the saying of, if people show you who they are, you should listen.
Hey guys, it's Shannon, and today I'm here to admit something pretty dang important about myself. I am a narcissist. That's right, I was fully diagnosed by some hipster bitch.
And for the last part of this video, and probably the most important part, I just want to do a little piece on being able to identify red flags in relationships, whatever type of relationship it is, for someone that is manipulative. So like I was saying previously, love bombing. So if you feel like someone is really kind of coming on strong, whether it's romantic or friendship, and it just feels a little bit strange, that's so intense, so fast, and things move quite fast as well. So for example, with relationships, romantic relationships, people end up, engaged within months, weeks even. They move in together and all of the rest of it, and they will, often tell partners or have the partner believe that they're going to get married, they're going to do this, they're going to do that, the other, literally within weeks of meeting, days of meeting sometimes. So watch out for that. Watch out for excessive amounts of admiration early on. Watch out for relationships that seem super fast paced, that you're kind of like, whoa, what the hell? This is a bit crazy. They're whipping out "I love you" after a week, when it's like, you don't even know my middle name, And another one, which seems obvious, but it's hard when I think you're in a relationship with someone, and again, not just romantic, but if things don't add up, like if someone lies about something really trivial, and there's a pattern of that, and you're thinking, why? Why is he or she lying about something so meaningless, and you know it to be true, or they're acting kind of shady and not telling you the full kind of spiel about something. That's also an indicator. But like I said, it can be hard to, when you're in it, sometimes it can be hard to kind of step back from it. Another red flag would be the silent treatment. So if sometimes you won't even know what you've done and the person isn't speaking to you for a period of time. So the silent treatment, it's very different from just, couples arguing and not speaking for a couple of hours. It's not that at all. Remember, it's an attempt to control. So if you're thinking, after someone hasn't spoken to you for a certain amount of time, if you're thinking, oh God, I better not do that again, or I'm going to avoid doing this so this doesn't happen again, so they don't not speak to me, it's a silent treatment, and it is very abusive. And lastly, there's lots of other red flags. I'm just kind of giving a few. If you know for sure things have happened and they're kind of making you doubt yourself a lot, and you're wondering, oh, okay, maybe I misremember that. Maybe that's not right. But you're sure that you are right. And if that happens, if there's a pattern forming with a lot of these, and they're not just once off, then something isn't right here. But yeah, that's all for me, guys. I thought some people might be interested in hearing the psychological perspective. And yeah, again, not diagnosing, not attempting to insinuate someone should have a diagnosis, merely just drawing on similarities that some of these kind of manipulative personality types have. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!